Good afternoon. It is Tuesday and it's about September 14th, I think. I thought it would be a good time to go over some of the successes and some of the failures that I experienced in my 2 garden patches this year. Kind of show you that sometimes successes are surprising. Sometimes failures aren't really failures. They're really successes disguising themselves as failures. So, here we go. First of all, my herb garden did really well. Not everything. The Italian parsley, I had to replant that. And that is down here. It's kind of covered up with weeds right now. I have to get in here and kind of clean that out a little bit. The rosemary never came up, but I've got some in pots that seem to do really well in pots, and I'll just overwinter them in pots. The oregano did amazing. And then the curly parsley never came up. So I've just allowed that to kind of go to weeds. And down in here somewhere are the radishes that I planted when it was too hot. And so while they came up as leaves, they didn't do a whole lot as radishes. I mean, look at that. This one is just kind of really stemmy. Well, I guess I've got a radish on there. Pull that baby out. Oh, see, one is just nothing but stem. But I do have a nice radish on there. So I'll go through and I'll pull those out. I planted a squash garden. And I decided that this year I would plant them a little bit close together and try to grow them vertically. But then I never got out here and staked them up. And so they just sort of spread out on their own. I trimmed them back some, but they got ahead of me. I've got some small squash that are coming on. But I don't know if there will be enough time. So I've got some small zucchini in there. I don't know if there's going to be enough time for what is getting ready to grow to finish. So we'll see. My turnips have done really well. I got to get in here and start pulling again. The rutabagas are finally starting to get some kind of size on them. We'll see if they're able to manage. But with all of those leaves spread out all over the place, making all those vines, I don't have a whole lot for squash. I've got some that are coming up on fences. So that shows that they will grow on a fence. But you have to provide the fence. So that was a failure on my part. Got some next squash that are ready to come out, but not very many of them. Seems like they're just starting to get ready to produce, and I don't know if they will have time to produce enough to have made all of this space worth it. And then this little strawberry plant tried to produce strawberries, but I don't know if it's ever really gonna put out any real strawberries, but I'm gonna try to overwinter that too and see if it just needs a full winter. I did get my wisteria to grow really well. That's gonna go over the quail enclosure come springtime. But then I've got beans, but not a ton of beans. And that's disappointing because I wanted a lot of beans. And maybe they're hiding because it's easy to hide in this garden. I've got, like I said, a lot of squash plants that made a lot of leaves. And for a while I was doing really good at keeping the leaves under control. But they kind of got ahead of me. I've got that zucchini there that's getting close. The cucumbers, they did okay. Not stellar. But the tomatoes and the peppers, my. tons and tons of peppers and tomatoes. They have literally gone insane. So I'm gonna have to get out here and do some more harvesting this coming week. And this volunteer squash, my goodness. The cilantro grew and did well, but I didn't get out here and harvest it soon enough, so I'll just let that come back next year. Sage is huge. Again, it always does well. My lemon balm didn't get real big, but it survived, so we'll see if it gets through the year. As you can see, I got a lot of tomatoes to pull out of here. And what you're probably not seeing is how many green ones I have still. But I've got a lot to take care of. Now the mint is trying to take over in my onion patch. I don't think my onions ever got very big. I'll just some down in there. But I will get in and pull those probably in a week or so. See what we end up with. Basil is doing really well. I've got another cucumber down here to, oh wait, that's a squash. I'll leave that one. Again, I don't know if that's going to have enough time to really turn into anything. But we'll leave it. Now, how is the failure of a lot of these plants actually a success? Goodness. That's my fennel. Well, it's fairly simple. This garden patch was just nothing but old orchard, rocks, unimproved dirt. And in the space of just a couple of years' time, it has turned into a healthy enough patch that all of this green was able to grow. I learned some things. Like I'm definitely going to trellis my squashes next year and my cucumbers. I'm going to trellis them better than I did. My beans, I'm definitely going to do a better job of trellising that. I'm going to move my tomatoes and my peppers. I bought a high tunnel and I'm going to move them for next year. I mean, look at this. They're taller than me. I would call that a huge success with tomato plants. I have learned how to grow them. The problem is they were out in too much sun and it got too hot, and so it kind of stunted them. Both the tomatoes and the peppers. And probably the squash to some degree. So I'm going to move those to the high tunnel for growing next year. Grow them vertically. My other garden patch is another failure success story. I don't believe I have a single jack-o'-lantern in there. But look at all that green. And I have tons of sunflowers, but sunflowers pretty much will go anywhere. I'm just happy with the success. I'm not sure what all is still in here that is viable, other than some medicinal herbs that are wild. But the kale and the collard greens in there, I've chopped them all the way down and they all came back again. So they're all pretty healthy. So this is definitely a good spot to put lettuces and kale. It seems to get the right amount of sunshine, the right amount of water. And it's definitely good for sunflowers. I've also got a huge patch of amaranth in here. I mean, it's going insane. So it's definitely a good spot for that. And I'm going to let that take over this patch here next year. The high tunnel is going here. And yes, it will cover those window wells, but it won't make it so that people can't get in and out of them. I've got those blue barrels that I'm going to fill up with water to anchor the four corners. And then we'll have that high tunnel back there. And that will mean that my tomato patch, I can spread out my squash and my pumpkins and my beans better, because they do grow really well there. They just don't have enough space. And I'm trying not to take away all of my husband's grass. He does like his lawn. He likes this to be a bit of a habitat for people too, and not just for food. So I'll try to not take over too much more of that. But, you know, a failure may feel like a failure, but if you've learned something from it and you've improved year after year based on your successes and failures, you adapt and apply. Wednesday, why are you in my garden? Now I gotta try to get you to go out. Go on. I don't know how you got in. I didn't think I left it open. You stay out of my garden for just a little longer. But you take what you've learned and you apply it year after year until you've honed it. So that is a success. Yeah, we're not going to have as many beans, at least maybe we will, I don't know, we'll see when I start pulling stuff out. But from what it looks like now, we aren't going to have as many beans as I wanted, as many rutabagas. I haven't checked the beets. I think they're kind of too covered up by the squash that took over. So, yeah, I don't know how much we're going to have of that. But we did get a lot of things out of this garden this year. We're definitely getting a lot of tomatoes and peppers. We're getting a lot of herbs, sunflowers. Amaranth is edible and very good for you, and takes very little to grow, apparently. Getting a lot of greens. And onions, I don't know, we'll see. I don't think we did as well on those as I would like to. And the squash, the jury is still out on that. But we are getting some. We just have to hope that they have enough time to grow to a harvestable size by the time the first frost hits. We're also leaving for a trip in about a month, and we'll be gone for a couple of weeks. And so I won't be able to do any harvesting. Hopefully everything waits until after I get back, or I'm able to get it in before we leave, because that 2 weeks is closer to the end of October. I guess we'll see what happens. Another success story, which is also kind of a failure, the turkeys. I mean, if you look behind me, where are they? You see that we still have 2 of them. We have Big Tom and we have the Jenny. And they are huge. And I don't mean they just look huge, they really are. We butchered Middle Tom on Saturday, and he ended up weighing in at about 40 pounds. And it wasn't that I had planned for him to wait so long that he got so heavy. It's more that a lot of things got in the way, and especially the heat, the over 100-degree heat day after day after day, that made us keep putting off the project of doing the butchering. We should have just toughed it out and just done it. They ended up going pretty much a full month longer. Plus, I couldn't really tell, and I could never get help when I was available to weigh them. There was never anybody here that would help to lift them, because I couldn't lift them and read the scale. And there was no way I was getting them to walk on a scale. And I don't have one of those hanging strap scales. So I just didn't have any idea. I was going by how they felt when I put my hands around their legs and their breast, and they just didn't feel that big. And I thought maybe they were actually not going to be as big as I wanted them to be. But when we lifted him up and put him in the cone, that's when I knew he was huge. And after taking the feathers off and cleaning him out and then weighing him, and he still weighed in at over 38 pounds, not including the giblets. I feel bad that we're having to wait yet another week on these other two, but we've discovered we just didn't have the time this past weekend to do all three of them. He took a long time. So this Saturday we will do both of them. We are going to get a much earlier start, and we are just going to push through. No matter what happens, we're going to push through and get them both done. And I'll update you on how big they were. So the failure is that we let them get way too big. But the success is that we were able to raise them to a good, healthy weight in probably 18 weeks. That's pretty good. Successes are only measured by what you learn from them. Otherwise, they're not a success. It doesn't matter how many tomatoes you produce one year if you've learned nothing and are not able to replicate that the following year. And failures are worth nothing if you haven't learned how to adapt from those failures and turn them into next year's successes. We'll go ahead and post this video and get ready to video the processing of Big Tom and the Jenny. I'll try to have that up on Sunday unless I'm too exhausted after hefting them both. But we're gonna push through and we're gonna get it done. Hopefully we have enough freezer space. We ended up having to buy a second freezer, but it won't be here until Saturday, and so it won't have a chance to really come up to or come down to the temperature we're going to need it at. But they have to set in the refrigerator for at least 24 hours anyway, so hopefully between the two we'll be able to just pop them into the new freezer once they've dropped their body temperature. Until then, everybody have a great rest of your week. And as you're going through your garden and you become frustrated by things that didn't work well, or things that didn't grow or didn't produce the way you wanted them to, or maybe didn't produce anything, just look and see what you've learned from it. See if you can adapt from that, and don't be too hard on yourself, because growing a vegetable garden is all about adaptation and learning from the things that go wrong. And they go wrong for everybody, no matter how long they've been gardening or how much money or time or skill they throw into it. They're still going to have things that are going to go wrong, and that's not even counting what the weather will do to you. And in our case, the weather had a lot to do with our failures, but it wasn't everything. So, you know, we learn and we press on. So you guys have a great week, and I'll catch you on Saturday.
So right now, she's mutilating this. She's getting all the ink sacs out of the holes. What a lovely hole that is. Mom, why does your thing suck at focus? Oh, okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
I think that's the leg. I don't want to touch that.
That's the leg.
Anyway, she's getting all the ink sacs out of all the holes. And
all the little pin feathers.
whatever. Same thing. Ew, why are you touching its butt?
Lifting it up.
Ew. That's the sink that we have to clean our dishes in.
He's just food.
And we also use that sink to like... Oh my gosh.
To what?
I'm gonna pass out.
Well, stop then.
No, it's entertaining.
Then you're not gonna pass out if you're entertained.
Is that...
Is that what? No.
Oh,
that is not.
how do you know?
Because I know what's on there.
Why are you
That's
rubbing the
not it.
turkey like that? Okay, listen! Listen! I get it. I get it. I'm sorry that you've never had a family that has ever loved you. Okay, but like, relax. Anyway, we're back. She's rubbing. I don't like the way you're rubbing that
Just
turkey.
rinsing it off.
It smells like
feathers
yeah.
off.